Hi, welcome to Naptime Nutrition. I'm Yaffi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist with Baby Bloom Nutrition and Toddler Test Kitchen. And today I have my fun earphones on and I'm running about 8 minutes late because mom life. I've got a sick kid at home and I want you to hear me, not the cat in the hat in the background. We do what we gotta do, right? So today we're talking about kids and candy, and this has come up a lot this week because I know that a lot of you don't celebrate this holiday, but there's a holiday coming up this week called Purim, and Purim is it can be compared to Halloween in some levels. We dress up in costume. There's a lot of candy going around, and there's a big concern about all the kids and all the candy. And this concern is much like the concern at Halloween when you're thinking about taking your kids trick-or-treating. So I pulled a lot of information from a fantastic article on how to approach Halloween with your kids, written by Megan McNamee of Feeding Littles. And maybe you're familiar with her group. She does fantastic work. We have a lot of overlap as far as the information we give. So I'm going to link to that in the comments section so you can see her original article. So here's the big thing. I have a complaint about the volume on the TV. I'll be right there, cutie pie. So first things first, you always want to try to have a balanced breakfast on any day of the week, any random occasion. But when you have a holiday coming up, when there's going to be a lot of candy, a lot of sweets, there's a wedding, there's some kind of family occasion, you want to make sure that you have breakfast, you have a balanced lunch that day. Whatever is the immediate meal preceding that event, you want it to be balanced and have a good amount of protein for staying power. You want it to have some fiber. And this is going to make sure that when you get to this event, that your kids are not going on an empty belly. So on that note, you also want to be sure that the food you're serving at that meal is something that's fairly readily accepted by your kids. You as the parent are in charge of what you're putting on the table, where you're serving it, and when you're serving it. And a lot of times we need to be proactive. And this is an instance where you want to be really proactive with types of things that your kids like. You want to make sure that they're going to accept this meal that you're putting on the table so that when you get to the party, they're not running on an empty belly and seeing a ton of candy and a ton of cake, because it's going to be that much more attractive. And the sugar spike and crash is going to be that much more dramatic and uncomfortable for everyone involved. So getting to the party with a comfortable full belly is really the way to go, and a good way to be proactive about that. You want to make sure that you're providing enough water at the meal. They should be very hydrated throughout the day. And that also helps the body deal with all the fun that's coming. Be conscious of choking hazards. This is a big thing. A lot of people whose kids are older, a lot of people who may be in charge of certain events are not really aware of what choking hazards are, and the fact that very small kids can have certain sweets that maybe shouldn't have lollipops because it's a choking hazard, or hard candies or gummies. So you want to be aware of what's being served and be prepared with an alternative so that when your 2-year-old comes up to you with a fistful of gummy worms, you can say, that's not good for you because it's a choking hazard, or however you want to actually talk to your child about that, and give them something else instead. Or you bring them over to the table and say, this candy is not for, insert your child's name here, but I have something for you instead. So it's really important that you're not just taking away candy and not giving the impression that they are not allowed to have something that everyone else is having. It's a health reason, it's a choking hazard, and it's important to be conscious of that. If you can head that off ahead of time by discussing with the host what's being served, that's great. That's not usually a possibility. So you want to be careful with hard candies, gummies, and lollipops. Lollipops really because kids like to run around. And it's very difficult to say to a kid with a lollipop, you sit still till you're done with that. You can say that to an older child, but a younger child is not going to understand that. And the stick is really what poses that hazard. So it's something to be aware of. Establish safe boundaries and stick to them. And this is more about the choking hazards. If something is not safe, or if there's an actual allergy in the family. In my family, we have a mango allergy, so the kids are aware that they should check the candy to make sure that it doesn't have mango in it, and to proceed as appropriate around mango, because that's an issue in our family. So whatever's an issue in your family, just make sure the kids are aware of that and help gently guide them in that direction. And be prepared with an alternative. I mentioned that. I'll mention it again. So allow the kids to participate. I'll get into what you want to avoid down the line. Right now, I'm going to keep it very positive, and that's what you should do as well. Keep it very positive with your kids. You're going to a place where there are other kids, and there are some things going on that maybe you're not thrilled with them participating in. Maybe you're not 100% on board with them having this amount of candy or cake or whatever it is. And sometimes we need to just take a step back and think, this is them relating to their peers. This is them relating in a circumstance that doesn't often happen at the house. The message that they get from your home, from you as parents, from your house, and the atmosphere that you create in your house is going to be the loudest message that they hear growing up. And so what happens on different occasions outside of the house is going to be just for fun. It's not going to stick with them as far as a meaningful message on how you relate to nutrition, unless it goes badly. If it goes badly, then it's going to stick with them. And I'm going to talk to you about how to avoid that. When your kids participate, they're forming a healthy relationship with their friends and with the community. They are experiencing a holiday or a festive occasion in a healthy way. They learn to understand their own internal signals without your interference. It's much more effective to teach nutrition from a perspective. Oh, Willow Wish says hi. I think I can. Yeah, I'm hoping to have someone from Willow Wish on for a very soon Naptime Nutrition to talk about babies' weights and all that. So thank you so much for joining, Willow. Very happy to have you. It's actually an organization, and they help women have the childbirth that they want to have. And so it's a wonderful organization, and I'm happy to be involved with them. Anyway, back on track. So you want your kids to understand their own internal signals. You want them to understand when they're hungry, when they're full, when they're satisfied. And that is much more effective when it comes from an internal place as opposed to an external place. It's much better than when you're telling them, because if you're telling them you've had enough, they don't internalize it. They don't really conceptualize that. And that's going to be a one moment conversation. Whereas when you let them truly experience their own biological signals and teach them that those signals are important and that they should be honored, that's going to be a really long lasting lesson for them. And that's going to have a lot of really positive consequences down the line. So it's important to have an open and gentle discussion about how our tummies hurt when we eat more than they're hungry for. And I stole that straight from Megan's article, Feeding Littles. So check out the comments section after the broadcast and you can read the article in its entirety. But you don't want to use an I told you so perspective. You want to let them experience that. And maybe they're going to get a sore tummy, and maybe they're even going to vomit or something. This is not stuff that you want to set your kids up for, but at the same time, you want them to understand these consequences from an internal perspective. When you eat too much, you don't feel good. So it's important to listen to your signals. It's important to listen to your hunger and your fullness. It's important to stop when you're satisfied, because if you go overboard, you're not going to feel great. But if you're restricting your kids, they're going to think, I need to eat it now, or it's not going to be around, which means that your risk-benefit ratio is thrown way off. So what do I mean by that? When you restrict food, it becomes more attractive, and they're willing to accept that sore tummy to enjoy the taste of the food now. If they understand that they're going to have access to that celebration, to that food, to that cake, whatever it is, they're going to find it less attractive, and they really are going to stop when they're satisfied. You're not fueling that obsession. You don't want to bargain or bribe. You don't want to say, finish your broccoli and then you can have candy, because as much as it sounds like you're encouraging a healthy relationship with food there, what it actually comes across as is, I didn't even put my crawler up. What it actually comes across as is broccoli is less desirable than candy. And you are actually training them to not like broccoli as much as they like candy and cakes and other sweet foods. So when you tell them, finish your broccoli and you can have candy, you are creating a hierarchy of food, and they're going to internalize that message rather than the positive message that you're really trying to get across. You, the parent, are in charge of what's served in your home. You are not in charge of what's served at these events. And a lot of times we wish we were, but we have to really cope with the situation at hand. And the best thing to do is to let your child experience it. They will come to a healthy place where they learn to listen to their internal signals. And I do have a special guest today. They learn to listen to their internal signals, and it's going to be much better for them moving forward into adulthood. When you're first starting out, if this whole concept is very, very foreign to you, you want to start with kind of a transition. You want to start in the home. You want to offer dessert one night, and maybe offer it 2 nights in a row. And then you start to pull back a little bit. And if your child requests dessert on a night when you have not planned to serve dessert, you're going to say, that sounds really good, but I didn't plan for that. Let's have it tomorrow. And then the other end of that is that you really do have to keep up that side of it. You have now promised that you are having that food for dessert the next day, so make it happen. As you transition out of that, you really, as the adult, you are in charge. And at any point, you get to decide what's going to be on the table. You make a plan and you stick with it. If everyone's going out for ice cream, then regardless of how much anybody ate, regardless of their behavior, everyone is going out for ice cream and you're going to enjoy it together. And this is just a side note as far as if you haven't been working with division of responsibility in the house. So when you're doing that, you're teaching them that sweets can be a part of our nutrition intake, and they can be taken in a safe way. And when I say safety, I'm talking about physical as well as emotional, because a lot of times we prioritize the physical health and over the emotional or the spiritual or the mental health. And this is what we're trying to get away from. Yes, sugar does not have a lot of nutritional qualities to it. It's not going to give back physically the way that other foods do, but you don't want to put that above what it's doing for you to celebrate with your community, with your family, because that is very important on an emotional and spiritual level. So think about that. You don't want to prioritize the physical over other aspects of health. A holistic view of health is taking all of those aspects into account and addressing them all at the same time, which is what this method is aiming toward. So what do you want to do? What do you want to avoid as a parent in these situations? You want to avoid chasing your child around. You want to avoid micromanaging the amount of food that they're taking, whether it's sweet or savory. And you want to avoid arguing. You don't want to get into an argument about it. Just aside from choking hazards, aside from medical concerns, let them participate. Let them feel what it feels like to overdo it. Let them feel what it feels like to just be able to participate without having someone hover over them. As long as they're safe, it's okay. They should be able to have fun. If you chase them around, if you argue with them, it's going to lead to hoarding food and hiding food and running and eating. Okay, running and eating is not safe, but another aspect to consider is if your child feels that they have to run away from you with a piece of cake while eating it, and I really have seen this happen, is your child tasting that cake? Is your child listening to their biological signals? They don't have a chance to listen to their biological signals because they're too busy hiding from you. So they're not enjoying the cake the way that they would. And when they're done with that, they're probably going to want another piece because they're not satisfied, because they were too busy running away from you and hiding to really enjoy and have a mindful experience with that cake. Kids, when left to their own devices, are amazingly mindful eaters. And that's why they can really understand these concepts from a very internal place. Of course, it's too philosophical for them to have a conversation verbally about it, but they naturally understand. Kids understand. They're born with these signals when they're hungry, when they're full. They know when to shut their mouths and turn their heads to the side from the first day they're born. And so we need to not get in the way of that. So restriction feeds obsession. And this is something that Rivki Berman says. She's an amazing dietitian as well. Restriction feeds obsession. When you are running around after your kids, restricting what they're eating, it's going to cause them to fixate on it. And that's not only going to last the length of the party, that's going to last beyond. And that's where you get the hoarding and the hiding And that's when you get trading food at school for foods that are not as common in their own home. And another colleague of mine, Elisheva Dorfman, who is an eating disorder therapist, family therapist, she says, think long term. This party is a moment in time, and nutrition is a marathon, not a sprint. This is a moment. And this moment can help define your parenting, but it's not going to define your child's nutrition. So if they really, really overdo it on the M&Ms or whatever it is, they're going to move past it. They're going to get past it. But you as the parent need to establish your own boundaries with how much you want to restrict your child. And in this case, this is a party, it's an event. So let them have a good time and let them feel what that feels like. And that message is so much louder than the restriction. But that restriction is a very loud message in and of itself as you go through time. You know, over the course of time, if they're allowed to experience their own biological signals, you're going to avoid things as they grow up, like dieting, like unhappy body image. They're going to feel more confident in general. And when they're more confident, they're able to overcome not only nutrition obstacles, but a lot of other kinds of obstacles in life. And so it's important for us as parents to build that confidence. Restriction doesn't build that confidence. Restriction may take into account their physical health in that moment. But aside from safety and medical concerns, that's really not going to help them in the long term when they're learning to prioritize physical health over emotional. And they're going to get into a lot of these pitfalls that we've experienced, that a lot of you have experienced. So if something is going on that's really excessive, that you think as a parent is excessive, that an organization is giving out way too much candy, or a school, for example, is giving prizes for getting answers right, and those prizes are always food. If you feel like this is going on a lot, you want to contact the administration. You want to contact the person who's in charge of this event, and don't address it with your child. Your child is too young to be in charge of that type of information. They are only going to be concerned about them and their body and their relationship with you, the parent. They don't need to be concerned about how much candy is being served and how it should have been done better and it could have been done differently. Address those concerns with the person in charge, not with your child. So that was Naptime Nutrition for today. I hope that this information was really meaningful to you. I referenced Feeding Littles with Megan McNamee. I referenced Rivki Berman and Elisheva Dorfman, and I'll put links to everyone in the comments section. And if you have any questions or comments, or you want to throw candy at me or something, let me know in the comments section. Follow me on Pinterest at pinterest.com/Yaffi, Yaffi. And come to Toddler Test Kitchen. If you're a Phoenix local, it's twice a month at the Farm South Mountain. And right now, it's getting a little bit warm out. And as it gets warmer, we're moving to Create, which is associated with the Arizona Science Center in downtown Phoenix. So very excited about that. I also do private in-home toddler test kitchen classes. And yeah, email me or, thanks, Christina. I love this series. Yeah, well, I've covered this a few different ways, but thank you so much for watching and commenting. And I'll see you next week on Tuesday. I have some really great stuff coming up. You don't want to miss it. Oh, how often do you offer Naptime Lives? Naptime Nutrition is every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or today it was 1:06 because one had a lot going on today, you know, mom life. But every Tuesday, Arizona time, 1 p.m., which is currently 1 p.m. on the West Coast as well, and 4 p.m. on the East Coast. I have a lot of fun stuff coming up, and you don't want to miss it. So join me. If you have any suggestions on topics, please let me know. I am always open to that. And I will see you right here at this time next week. Thanks, and have a great week.